Hi everyone, Kareen Erbe here with Broken Ground, and today I want to talk to you about how I established my front yard wildflower and drought tolerant garden. So I'm sitting here in what used to be a lawn, and I'm surrounded by wildflowers that are mostly native. I can see showy goldeneye, I can see pale purple coneflower, I have flax here behind me, you can see some white sage here. I also want to apologize in advance. You'll notice that this is a super busy street, and this is one of the reasons why, even though this is the warmest microclimate on our property, this is one of the reasons why I chose just to plant native plants and drought tolerant plants up here and not my kind of edible vegetable garden, because I didn't want to be out here where there's a lot of traffic going around. But I still wanted to provide habitat for all sorts of different pollinators. So I've done a video about some of the species that I've included in this front yard garden. So I will refer to that video, and so definitely check that out for specific species, and I'll probably mention some during this video. But what I really wanted to talk about today is how I actually established this front yard garden. So native plants and establishing native gardens is kind of all the rage right now, especially in our city, where the city is incentivizing homeowners to get rid of their lawns. Again, because of the fact that we probably shouldn't have lawns in this climate. But I wanted to let you know how I established this one. So first off, and I have some notes here that I have to refer to just so that I remember, but first off, I took measurements and did a map of this site. So I took measurements of this front lawn area and came up with a rough site plan. So it wasn't like super specific, but it was a rough site plan. And I also did a lot of research on the species that I wanted to include. All of the native plants that I wanted to include that might also have some medicinal properties, and also checked some of the wholesale nurseries to see what was available. So I did a little bit of research and did a very rough site plan, so I kind of knew how many plants to get of what species. So that was my first step. My second step is that then I enlisted a friend of mine who's an earth worker to actually come in and scrape the front lawn. So he used an excavator to do that. My feeling was that it didn't make a lot of sense to sheet mulch this area and then establish a native garden, mostly because I didn't want to be competing with the grass constantly, and also because in this kind of native drought tolerant garden, you actually don't need to build the soil very much, because our native plants are used to kind of growing in crappy, poor soil. So that wasn't as important to actually build soil. So I wasn't as concerned about losing the biomass. So my friend Luke came in and he scraped all of the lawn and he used it to build a berm. And the reason I wanted a berm in this situation was, of course, because of all the traffic that you have been hearing, wanting to put shrubs along that berm to kind of block the road a little bit. So he came in, he scraped the grass. Then what I did is I obviously got a bunch of plants. And so I established this garden with a combination of three things. I bought 1 gallon pots of some of the bigger plants. So I have shrubs in here. So I got 1 gallon pots of golden currants, of snowberries, of some of the Rocky Mountain sagebrush. So I got 1 gallon pots of that. And then I got 6-inch plugs for all of the other wildflowers. So again, showy goldeneye, the bee balm, the pale purple coneflower, the fleabane, and some of the other sages. I got got 6-inch plugs, and that's actually how I'd recommend you establish it. And then I did also buy a packet of wildflower seeds. So I had one area that I kind of cleared where I threw down those wildflower seeds in that specific area, but most of this area is where I put the 6-inch plugs. So So then I used some old sheets from a massage therapist that I know that needs to kind of replenish her sheets every once in a while. So I used some old cotton sheets to establish a trail along which I put mulch. But then I put in all these 6-inch plugs everywhere, and I put mulch in and around the 6-inch plugs and the 1-gallon pots of plants. And then obviously I watered it in. Right now this year we had a pretty good year in terms of moisture so far, and I haven't watered this front yard area yet. It's about the middle of July, and things are just going to town. And so, but initially to establish it, especially if you're putting in shrubs and bigger 1-gallon pots and all those little plants, you do need to kind of water stuff in and be pretty diligent about it for the first 2 or 3 years. This front yard area has now, I put it in fall 2018. It is now July of 2023, so it has a few years, and it's really starting to mature and get established. Because I did not spray before we did this, and we did have some thistle and dandelion in here, there is a fair amount of weeding that needs to be done in here. Again, at least initially, while the trees and shrubs get established. That's one reason why I put more shrubs and things like the silver sage, because they kind of take up a lot of space, and I have a few ground covers in here as well. So, but there is a certain amount of weeding out of thistle and dandelion that I need to do in order for the natives to kind of take over. So expect that you'll have a level of maintenance to this kind of garden if you do not want to spray, right? You'll have a level of maintenance of weeding in those first few years while a lot of these plants get established and take hold, because they really can't outcompete things like thistle very well. And so you want to give them some kind of head start. So that's kind of what I did. It took a little bit, but again, what I always recommend is, enlist people to help out if you can. Have a planting party with your neighbors. I had a client that did the same thing with her lawn this past season, and she just invited a bunch of neighbors and friends over. She fed them coffee and cookies and other great things, and they helped her put in all of the plants. And then you have this amazing habitat for birds and for bees and for butterflies for years to come, that doesn't suck up a lot of water and creates this beautiful environment. So as always, let me know if you have any questions about how I established this native garden. I hope that gives you a little bit of inspiration and motivation to do the same if you do have any lawn that you want to get rid of. It's totally worth it. Coming out here and seeing all of the different creatures that benefit from this, when before it was just this kind of monocultured lawn, definitely is really good for the spirit, and it creates this beautiful habitat. So I love it a lot, and it's a great thing to come home to every day when I'm out and about. So again, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.